Company Law by the Chartered Accountant Study Circle, and he has presented articles in Business Line. With this brief, I present Dr. B. Ravi to you, friends. I'll have the pleasure of inviting Mr. Kalyan Raman, CAK Kalyan Raman, here on the dais to welcome he's from Tiruchirappalli, he has come exclusively. Please, Mr. Kalyan Raman. To welcome our chairman of the technical session, Mr. Chandrasekharan, with the fruit bouquet. I'll also take the pleasure of inviting Mr. Muralidharan, P.N. Muralidharan, from Gandhinagar, Chennai, to welcome Dr. B. Ravi.
I'm also one of the students.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. It's a pleasure, Mr. Murali.
But it is an arm's length transaction, so not related party.
So to Mr. K.C. for his views, then to Dr. B. Ravi.
Dr. Ravi, Mr. Gopalakrishnan, and friends, a very warm good afternoon to all of you. Let me at the outset thank Dhanapal, who has given me an opportunity to stand before you. He called me about 4 or 5 days back and asked me and invited me to be a chairman for this session. I said, Dhanapal, I completely forgot what I studied 25 years back and 30 years back. And I've been fully involved in the business the last 35, 40 years. Would I be able to do justice for the task that you are giving me? He said, Ravi is there, you just come and just be there. So Ravi is a good friend of mine. We were members in the council in 97 to 2000, right? 2000. And I have been in touch with him for quite some time. And I just want to give one information. How a profession, not necessarily company secretary, a friend of mine who is a big industrialist wanted me to refer a good company secretary for merger and acquisition. It occurred to me immediately that I should refer in those days Ravi, Dr. Ravi, but I call him only as Ravi. And yes, that's a big job and good fee also. But my friend came and told me that the job has been completed to his entire satisfaction. That gives me enormous amount of satisfaction because that is what is expected from all of us here. The end users of our services ought to be satisfied with the advice that we are going to give them. And I'm very sure that the members of the Institute of Chartered Accountants and the company secretaries, we are capable of rendering that services. And this kind of seminars and get-togethers will definitely support us in acquiring more and more knowledge. Coming back to today's, the second technical session, shares, debentures, and deposits. But before that, I was talking to some of our colleagues here. Please welcome the new act with a positive note. As somebody, as Gopalakrishnan mentioned, the 1956 Act outlived its usefulness because it was passed in 1956. This act, all of you are aware, it is, this is an act followed by what has been given in the UK's Companies Act, which was originally followed from the joint stock company concept. The 1956 Act was introduced 56, 57 years back, taking into account what was required at that point in time to regulate the industry and the law required at that point in time. Things have changed in the last 50, 60 years, not only in the government, the thinking of the government, the industrialists, the professionals. A lot of things have happened in the last 4 to 5 decades that call for a complete relook at the Act. And almost all the institutes, that is chartered accountants, company secretaries, cost accountants, and the professional bodies, and the business bodies like so all of us we involved in discussion, debate, and give our views to the government as to what are all the sections that has to be changed, and what are all the rules to be changed, deleted, added, and what are the things to be done in order to get the best for the stakeholders. See, there should be equitable justice to all the stakeholders, not only to the shareholders, not only to the employees, not only to the government. See, the stakeholders will have to be justified. If you look at the changes that have been effected in the new act, there is a wholesale change in the perception itself, and there is a complete change from the point of the government, from the point of the regulatory authority, from the point of complaint, that is us, the professionals and the industry. I think in this new Act 2013, to the extent that is possible, they have plugged the loopholes, which many times, the unscrupulous people used to always adopt. After all, the new Act is come into force only because, with a view to plug the loopholes, number one. Number two, in the changing in the industrial environment, things have changed. Things have changed in various, after all, change is a constant thing. There will be a change in everything every day. Therefore, the Act also will have to be in tune with what is happening in this, the current scenario. The major thing what I've seen from the old Act and the new Act is the difference between the public limited and the private limited, excepting to the extent of the restrictions in the transfer of shares. All the privileges given to the private limited companies have been completely done away. And leave it to Ravi, because I know that all of you are waiting for Ravi to stand before you and give his lecture. He is not only a good company secretary, he is also a good teacher. I know that he is teaching in all the 3 institutes, and he has been rated as #1 teacher in company law in all the 3 institutes. The type of shares and the voting rights and also the issue of securities and the further issues are the same for the public limited company and the private limited company now. This is the major change that has been done by the new Act, which I have seen. The class action suit in case of misleading prospects is a very welcome thing. I think all of you, I think Ravi is going to discuss that at great length. There is some restrictions in issue of bonus shares. There is some restrictions in, I believe Ravi will talk about the shares to be issued at discount. Now, in the old Act, shares could be issued at a discount up to the extent of 10%, right? That has been done away now, excepting in the case of, I think, ESOP. Ravi would actually, I would request you to deal with the transitional provision. I think there is not much mention about that in the new Act. You can also talk about that. And the depository records are specifically defined in the new Act, and that is the prima facie evidence of your beneficial interest in the ownership of the company. And the voting rights in the public limited company and the private limited company are almost the same now. And in so far as the preference share capital, Ravi, I think there is the new Act provides for issuing of preference capital for more than 20 years in certain cases. Like, if it is for a new project, for the infrastructure project, you can issue debentures for more than 20 years also, which was not there in the earlier Act. I think there is a lot of amendments they have issued in the prospectus, in the public offer, in the private placement. They also mentioned, they also introduced a new provision for private placement that I would like to deal, I would like to request Ravi to deal in detail. As far as Section 81(1)(a), the right to show, what we heard earlier, there's amendment to that, which Ravi will definitely discuss in detail. And insofar as what I've seen in the Act is, there used to be a provision for return of allotment to be filed with the registrar in the old Act, but I don't find that in the new Act. I don't know whether I'm right in saying that. The new Act does not prescribe over the return of allotment to be filed with the registrar. That you can elaborate. There are other things like bonus shares, and also the redemption of preference shares. There's some change in that. As far as the debentures are concerned, the only two things what I've seen in that is We need a special resolution to be passed by the shareholders for issue of debenture with conversion option. That was not there earlier. And the new act requires appointment of debenture trustees compulsory for public issue of debentures through prospectus or to be issued to more than 50 members. It was not there in the earlier legislation. So far as the deposit is concerned, the section 58A have been completely changed, and now we need to pass a special resolution in the general meeting approving the acceptance of deposits. And there is a new document that is called for, that issue of circular giving the details of the deposit accepted earlier, repaid, pending, all these things will have to be given in the form of a circular to be issued to the shareholders. Only then you can accept that. But there is one provision, I don't know whether you noticed in that, you have to deposit 15% of the deposit maturing during this year and the deposit to be maturing in the next year, and you have to deposit in a scheduled bank. I believe that 15% is too big an amount. See, if you remove 15% from your working capital limit, now how do you service the depositors? So this is going to be a big, after all, you get only about 5%, 6% or 7% from the scheduled bank by interest for the deposit. But you will be agreeing to pay 10% to 15% depending on the company which is accepting the deposit. So this gap seems to be a little big amount as far as I'm concerned. And you have to also provide security, if any. The new act requires the credit rating to be obtained not only for at the time of accepting deposit, you have to also obtain credit rating every year. This will definitely ensure the company which is not doing things properly, they will definitely get punished because they won't get the rating from the rating agencies what they want. So this is a welcome measure in the new act. And what I've seen is the concept of small depositors. I don't see that in the new act. I think that we need to discuss and debate. And in all, what I personally feel is that due to lack of time, I don't want to stand before you and the good lecture by Ravi. What I would personally request all of you is, please receive the new Companies Act 2013 with a positive note. There are a lot of good things that have happened in that act, and a lot of loopholes that were there in the previous act have been removed, have been plugged, and there are a lot of positive things. Actually, if you look at, this is the first time, normally in the act, if you see, for any violation, they would prescribe that a penalty or a punishment not exceeding rupees so and so. But this is the first time, for the first time I'm seeing in this act, if you commit a mistake, if you commit any violation, they have prescribed a minimum penalty. A minimum penalty, either by way of fine or by way of imprisonment. This will definitely deter the people who are trying to commit violation of the provisions of law. This act actually gives more importance for not only compliances of the provisions of law. The regulatory authority have also been given a lot of powers. Certain powers have been given to the national, powers have been given to the tribunal. I wouldn't really know as to when the tribunal is going to take, when the tribunal is going to handle this. It will all, we have to wait and see. With this, I would request Ravi to deal elaborately. I only thrown the basic points, elaborately on the issue of shares. There are a lot of things have been introduced. I don't want to go into detail because it runs into several sections and rules and the regulation. I would request Ravi to touch upon that, and I would also request him to briefly mention about what are the rules which are already published. Now they notified. Many sections, many rules have been already notified, which have already come into effect. There are some provisions which have been notified, which is going to come into effect in the future. There are many notifications that are going to come in the future also. I would request Ravi to touch upon that briefly, because the time available for us is only about 30 minutes. I would end with this, and I would request you, instead of keeping it as a lecture meeting, as I told Mr. Dhanabal, let Ravi take about 30 minutes. You have at least half an hour for you to raise your doubts, get the doubts clarified. That is the purpose of today's deliberation. Thank you very much once again for giving me the opportunity. We'll meet again.